So this is on the fly. I'm watching Jim Henson's Greek myth series from 1990, episode 1. It's about Daedalus and his son Icarus, and it's crossing into where Daedalus. I didn't know this part of the myth. I thought I'm pretty familiar with mythology, but I'm not not on a scholarly level, just a little bit above a enthusiast level, like hobby kind of thing. So I'm familiar with. I have studied the Minos myth. Actually, I just thought about it. I have another quote in here too, from Joseph Campbell about that. So I tried to do a little preparation. Now, before Joseph Campbell, first of all, was the one that helped me reevaluate my perception of reality by reevaluating my perception of mythology. That, without me realizing what was happening to me, so to speak, transformed my perception of human behavior. Oh shoot! I'm doing this as a screenshot because I got to get stuff. So I have trying to because I got to touch in the screen. So I took the inspiration from Joseph Campbell in one of the terms that stuck with me when he's speaking about the myth of Jonah and the whale within the Jewish Torah, which is also often called the Jewish Bible, or the Tanakh. Is he says, I might even have that quote in here too. I'll try to pull that up. Well, let me see. Might as well just give it a shot. I had stuff in order, but I guess I can do this on the fly. Whale. Okay. So the whale represents the personification, you might say, of all that is in the unconscious. In reading these things psychologically, thank goodness I got it. So this is it right here. In reading these, son of a bitch. In reading these things psychologically, water is the unconscious. The creature in the water would be the dynamism of the unconscious, which is dangerous and powerful and has to be controlled by the conscious. Actually, real quick, I just got to do this just because. Oh, well, it doesn't matter. I don't have to do that. Oh, but here's the -1. Okay. Might as well get into this right now. The story is told, for example, of the great Minos, king of the island empire of Crete, in the period of its commercial supremacy. How he hired the celebrated artist craftsman Daedalus to invent and construct for him a labyrinth in which to hide something of which the palace was at once ashamed and afraid. For there was a monster on the premises which had been born to pacify, and I believe that's there. I've never validated this, but just acoustically, I associate that with pacify. The queen, Minos the king, had been busy, it is said, with important wars to protect the trade routes. And meanwhile, Pasiphae had been seduced by a magnificent snow-white sea-born bull. It had been nothing worse, really, than what Minos' own mother had allowed to happen. Minos' mother was Europa. This is not a bullshit. This is directly where Europe gets its name. And while you can understand the foundational psychology of what they call the European, and it is well known that she was carried by a bull to Crete. Now, that is because mythology is not set in stone, so to speak. It comes from one source, and reading these things psychologically. To read these things psychologically, first and foremost, you have to intuit or finally consciously embrace that everything comes from the human psyche. Within the human psyche, everything exists, therefore, at the same time, nothing exists within it. That's why there's a difference between what's in the psyche and the world that is actually around us, that's matter and, form and shit like that. So, this particular version that he's citing is about Europa being carried to Crete. But I discovered a book from a thrift store that I got for $1 about Greek myths. And it was an Anglicanized from English variations of Greek myths. And they transferred, in place of Crete, that Europa was taken to, guess where, people? Britain. The Isle of Britain. And that's significant because this has to do with the psychology of the Angles, the English people, ing, not just eng, phonetics, transcend visual, stringent visual representations. So England is also ing land. So Europa jumps on the white bull, is seduced by Zeus. Okay, anyway, the bull had been the god Zeus, and the honored son of that sacred union was Minos himself. Now everywhere respected and gladly served. How then could Pasiphae have known that the fruit of her own indiscretion would be a monster? This little son with human body, but the head and tail of a bull. So, in all of this, reading these things psychologically, a bull is a symbol of authority. So, Minos is deemed an authority figure. This is all symbolic. Again, these are not real people. So he's transcends humans. Therefore, let's just go real quick here. A dangerous question for every sovereign is his origin. Roberto Calasso writes in The Ruin of Casque, sovereignty can be attacked by tracing back to its origin, but sovereignty wins its contest when it refuses to give an account of itself, except to something, Dieu, I don't know what that means, on which no one can reckon. This is the origin of the arcane truth formulated by Disraeli, never explained. The Crisis of Legitimacy, Roberto Calasso, The Ruin of Casque by John Flynn York, February 19th, 2018. So to justify his might as well keep going. I got more here. But at home, the queen had been inspired by Poseidon with an ungovernable passion for the bull, and she had prevailed upon her husband's artist craftsman, the peerless Daedalus. So this is kind of where the story breaks off from what I'm watching right here, because Daedalus barely gets there, and the bull, the Minotaur, as we find, it hasn't mentioned the name yet in either one of these things. The Minotaur already exists, was already born. But in the Greek story, you see the Daedalus was there before the Minotaur was born. And she prevailed upon her husband's artist, craftsman, the peerless Daedalus, to frame for her a wooden cow that would deceive the bull, into which she eagerly entered. And the bull was deceived. So she made a like a capsule, like a spaceship, in the shape of a cow with a opening in a specific area. So when the bull mounted in the act of procreating, that she could be inside and receive the genetic code. She bore the monster. She bore her monster, which in due time began to become a danger. And so Daedalus again was summoned, this time by the king, to construct a tremendous labyrinthine enclosure with blind passages to which to hide the thing away. So deceptive was the invention that Daedalus himself, when he had finished it, was scarcely able to find his way back to the entrance. Therein, the Minotaur, there we go, finally, was settled, and he was fed thereafter on groups of living youths and maidens, carried as tribute from the conquered nations within the Cretan domain. Thus, according to the ancient legend, the primary fault was not the queen's, but the king's, and he could not really blame her, for he knew what he had done, because he was supposed to give up the bull in the first place. The bull was a gift that he was supposed to sacrifice, and in the end, he swapped out a bull, a cow, or a bull from his own herd, rather than give back to the gods what was given to him, because it had something to do with how he gained his throne, something like that. Okay, so all right, so what I'm trying to stay focused here on reading things psychologically and giving you an in-depth way of seeing myths. So the labyrinth, the bull, and the consuming youths and maidens are critical components. Because what I came to the conclusion, well, let me just go to, let me turn this off and we'll check some of this. Oh, shoot. Am I still recording? Still recording. I want this screen. All right, so let's skip here.
No, my problem is that I have a creature with a cage.
A cage would not tax me, Lord.
It's a very special creature. It requires a very special cage. It's a curse on my family, but I cannot kill it. That is not to be. And its hunger is for human flesh. There must be no way out of its cage. Use that clever brain to design something.
Okay, so use that clever brain to design something is significant. This right here, where did it go? Right here. Labyrinthine, okay? So, all right, let's just go over here real quick. I'm gonna need this. I never knew how to spell labyrinth. Information of the ear. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, I'm getting labyrinth myth. All right, here we go. Ah, there we go. Good. That's what I was looking for. Images. Okay, so these are some of these old representations. There's a reason that it's squared off. That's a perfect one right here. This one. Okay, because what I ended up coming up with, taking Joseph Campbell rethinks psychologically and not taking anything as it is, I came up with the conclusion that the labyrinth is much like, what the heck, is much like of Ra and pineal gland. I don't know. This thing right here. The way people say this is part of this. So this is the Egyptian, essentially, symbol for the mind, the inner third eye, whatever. I don't know. I don't get into any of like this telekinetic stuff. You are God. Okay, that's fine. We are in the sense that we create gods, but that's another thing because everything comes from the psyche. So, in my interpretation, the labyrinth is the Greek variation of that. And then there's one in Buddhism too. Buddhism. Thousand petal lotus. Okay, so this is what I believe in Buddhism also represents their version of the brain. Now, because of the different cultural impressions, round and squared have something to do. Like, here's another good example. Okay, you got yin and yang, right? Yin and yang. So you got this one right. Now you have Greek art initiate. Alrighty, I was hoping to be more prepared. There's one with the, I forgot who the, Athena? Is it Athena? Or Minerva? Oh, look, this one right here is, they're pulling the initiate out. But no, it's a drawing. Maybe it's here. Athena? Darn, who is she? Who else could it be? So, okay, well, we're doing the yin and yang still. Or trying to. You know, I'm just going to do this. And then I'm going to say do more. Because this is at least the style of art that I'm looking for specifically. It's already way longer than I wanted it to be. So Joseph Campbell reveals that there is a Greek yin and yang. And we see it a lot around us because the difference is the rounded and squared off, basically. It doesn't look like. I'm gonna find it. You've reached the end. The end of the line. Darn, 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 and I feel compelled to keep talking because of the way the video is. So I just have to ramble. Oh, maybe here? I want to see more of these. Darn. Oh well, I failed in this one. Just gonna have to move on. So anyways, it's gonna be cheesy, but I can kind of do this. Concrete blocks for top of wall. Come on, I don't know why you're going so slow. Jesus fucking Christ, just load already. So can't believe this is even being difficult. Wow. I thought I was gonna find it right away. Not even on the periphery of any of these. Crazy. And I don't know how to describe open blocks. Capital? Should I put capital? I don't think they use that term anymore. Capital meaning the top of. Wow, not even by mistake. Wow, this is terrible. And this is so freaking slow. Wow, this is whack. I'm a failure. Anyways, it looks like half a swastika. I can't believe I can't find it. I thought this would help give me some legitimacy. Turns out I got nothing. And then I'm killing my time. What a waste of energy. Jeez, what a waste of freaking energy. So anyways, there are these kind of blocks here. It won't even open. Jeez. They're these kind of blocks basically, but they have like zigzag and a squared off zigzag inside of them. I don't even remember what they look like now. I'm so confused looking at all this crap. They're not meant for the wall itself. They're meant just for the top. Decorative. Decorative top stones. Getting closer. This is getting closer. Oh, now we're getting somewhere. So it's basically something like, it's kind of like this, but it's even more simple. It's just, like I said, it's like half a swastika. Well, this kind of makes me want to build a wall. This looks like fun. It's hilarious. I can't find this Stupid shit. I could probably go outside and find one in the neighborhood. All right, but anyways, so I'm just saying, I hope all that to say is the point is one is squared off and one is rounded. Okay. So the labyrinth means the mind, the brain. So I think that Jim Henson is aware of that, and that's why he says use your brain to create a labyrinth. Use your brain to create a brain. Now, how could that play into anything? Oh, let's just get here real quick. I got this set up for myths. Marshall McLuhan on myth. For myth is an instant vision of a complex process that ordinarily extends over a long period of time. Myth is contraction or implosion of any process, and the instant speed of electricity confers the mythic dimension on ordinary industrial and social action today. We live mythically, but continue to think fragmentarily and on single planes. Okay, and then just another one was here. This is from the Phrygian Tales by J.B. Rives. Starting. Oh no. Actually, yeah, starting up right up here and then going down. One response on the part of many intellectuals was to co-opt the prestige by reinterpreting traditional divine myths as coded accounts whose real meaning could be revealed only by those with the proper interpretive key. An often cited remark of Pausanias nicely sums up this view. When I began this work, I used to look upon these Greek stories as markedly on the foolish side, but when I had got as far as Arcadia, in my opinion about them became this: I guess that the Greeks who were accounted wise spoke of old in riddles and not straight out, and that this story about Kronos is a bit of Greek wisdom. In other words, divine myth could be appreciated as a type of ancient wisdom, one that through the application of the proper techniques could be mapped onto types of modern wisdom. By the Hellenistic period, a range of such techniques had been developed, of which the two most popular were precisely those attested for these Phrygian tales: the historizing interpretation that saw the gods as ancient rulers and culture heroes, and the allegorizing interpretation that saw them as symbols of elements and forces in the natural world. The natural world is a very broad term, and the psyche falls within the natural world, but again, there's nothing in the psyche, yet at the same time, everything is in the psyche. To a large extent, no doubt, the appropriateness of these interpretative techniques could be demonstrated simply by their ability to reveal, quote unquote, reveal the modern wisdom that was alleged to lie encoded in the ancient narratives. All right, so back to this. Well, I haven't seen beyond what I showed you in the video. I haven't seen beyond it. I stopped it because it's spontaneous. So we're watching this together for the first time.
And people say Daedalus did use his brain, but the maze he built to imprison the monster, the Minotaur, was designed like the brain itself. And 1,000 years later, it still stands here.
So was Minos pleased?
Minos was cruel. Minos had two secrets: who the Minotaur was and how to get out of the labyrinth. Now Daedalus knew both of them. When the monster was taken into its new prison, Daedalus and Icarus were locked in with it, down there somewhere, in the heart of the labyrinth.
Okay, so, all right, that's cool. Really cool to see. All right, so, obviously this is a variation. This is not accurate with the myth. Now, this is where it gets, it's only mind-boggling because as a byproduct of the system that we live in that amplifies the personal ego so as to associate the self with having answers, having assessed answers that were implanted rather than revealed or revealed to self by self. So, what I'm about to say about this myth sounds ridiculous. But as I just showed you through these two other things, here's a good example of this. Marshall McLuhan uses this system. So this is a page from his book, Understanding Media. From this, when I was reading this, I read this 7 times. Just the book 7 times. My notes I've read. It's going to be crazy. But just in my first time reading this, I intuitively associated this with ABC, the parent company of Google. And I saw the reason why they chose Alphabet Inc. as their name. Because the other thing too is I believe that the people in that industry and at that level, they've studied Marshall McLuhan. That's in one sense part of their success, because they're not the geniuses, but they know how to parasitically absorb genius from geniuses. So the Greek myth about the alphabet was that Cadmus, reputedly the king who introduced the phonetic letters into Greece, sowed the dragon's teeth, and they sprang up like armed men. Like any other myth, this one encapsulates a prolonged process into a flashing insight. The alphabet meant power and authority and control of military structures at a distance. That's what made Rome what it was, and that's why they say there was a Dark Ages. When Rome fell, the reason Rome fell in the first place was that Rome lost Egypt to the Macedonians, Ptolemy. And with that, Marshall McLuhan suggests that they lost the papyrus manufacturing system that gave them the military supremacy of communicating so accurately from one point to another. Again, accurately. There was no mistaken, that telephone thing. Hey, she said meet her at the store. And then, as it gets down the line, she said the sheep are worth more. Something like that. So, fire line or telephone line, however it goes. So, but once they lost that, then that line of communication began to break down. That made their outer points, the frontier points of the empire, vulnerable to attacks without having the authoritarian structure that they were used to on what to do. And then you had what's presented as the overall implosion. Okay, so here we go. Yeah, one more thing. Let me see here. I'm not going to get into it all the way, but I just do got to cite it. Okay, here it is right here. So I've read this several times. Now, the significance of this... What the hell? Get the hell out of here. Okay, the significance of this is tied in directly with this myth. Because this, too, the trial and death of Socrates also is a myth. From all the study that I've done, Socrates is a mythological figure, not real. I think it could be one of two ways. Plato and Socrates, in my minuscule understanding, are the same person. I believe that Plato, let's just deal with him being the real person, and one is a pen name. There you go. So I believe that Plato in this death and trial of Socrates is allegorizing his own life, and that he was put through this situation and he was forced to drink the hemlock. But at the time, the hemlock that he drank was not a poison to kill him, but it's a chemical form of castration. Because that in the Greek, this period of Greek was a fate worse than death, was to be chemically castrated. And that from the point of him teaching these quote unquote heretical ideas to he's one character, and after he's convicted and chemically castrated with the hemlock, then he takes on this pen name or pseudonym, I think, pseudonym, I forgot how to say it. So in this, the whole point of this is, in our current academia, Socrates is said to be essentially the father of Western civilization. He's a mythological figure. He chose Socrates as the central figure, chiefly, no doubt, on account Socrates well known. I'm just scrolling through this too. Personal appearance, a grotesque ugliness, flat nose, whatever, I don't even know. So the point of this is that Socrates at the end dies because he falls victim to the legal system. He's the smartest man in the world. 2 years later, Socrates again showed by his conduct that he would endure anything rather than do wrong. He was an upright, good man, which gets into Plato's just man, which I could just really actually go right back here, because it's just up here. Then we must deprive him of seeming, for if he is going to be thought of just, he will have honors and gifts because of that esteem. We cannot be sure in that case whether he is just for justice' sake or for the sake of the gifts and the honors. So we must strip him bare of everything but justice and make his state the opposite of his imagined counterpart. Though doing no wrong, he must have the repute of the greatest injustice, so that he may be put to the test as regards justice, through not softening because of ill repute and the consequences thereof. But let him hold on his course unchangeable even unto death, seeming all his life to be unjust. That means guilty in the court, though being just, so that both men attaining to the limit, the one of injustice, the other of justice, we may pass judgment on which of the two is the happier. For the height of injustice is to seem without being so. Is to seem just without being so. To be perfectly unjust man, then, we must assign perfect injustice and withhold nothing of it. But we must allow him, while committing the greatest wrongs, to have secured for himself the greatest reputation for justice. And if he does happen to trip, we must concede him the power to correct his mistakes by the ability to speak persuasively if any of his misdeeds come to light. And when force is needed, to employ force by reason of his manly spirit and vigor, and his provisions of friends and money. That goes with reputation, which is part of the Bar Association. Let me just do that real quick. Okay, then we just read the English. Reputation is common opinion where there is not truth. A common opinion is of two kinds, to wit, common reputation arises among grave and sensible men, which has the appearance of truth, and mere opinion arising among foolish and ignorant men without any appearance of truth. So the perfectly unjust man relies on that type of system. That's English common law, which is tied into all of this too. Come to light by provision of friends and money. And when we have set up the unjust man of this character, our theory must set the just man at his side, a simple and noble man who, in the phrase of Aeschylus, does not wish to seem, but to be. We must tell it then, and even if my language is somewhat rude and brutal, you must not suppose, Socrates, that it is I who speak thus, but those who commend injustice above justice. What they will say is this, that such being his disposition, the just man will have to endure the lash, the rack, chains, the branding irons in his eyes, and finally, after every extremity of suffering, he will be crucified, and so will learn his lesson, that not to be, but to seem just is what we ought to desire. Okay, so we got that with Socrates. So Socrates dies because the system that the labyrinthine system that he is thrown into, which is the bar in our current, it's a legal system. It's a legal system. It, you could call it, I guess, with the common terminology that's being used today, it's a type of um, it's a type of I mean, I want to say, if it were really the case that women or men could be deprived of their natural rights so utterly as never to have any further influence on political, I started changing this up to political, economic, and military affairs, except with the permission of the holders of sovereign right, it would be possible to maintain with impunity the most violent tyranny, which I suppose not one would for an instant but admit. Oh, actually, while I'm right here, I might as well just finish this. So then get to first, we must understand that English common law goes back to the sovereign, okay, and the sovereign having to legitimize itself. First, we must understand that English common law is not civil law. Like this, page 47, then skipping to page 61 in this book. Like the rest of creation, man is subject to the laws laid down by the Creator. Man, this is another, so they're saying English common law isn't made by the English. Understand? Man, unlike the rest of creation, has a certain degree of a create. Now, Creator creates creatures. Creation is a creature. That also has to do with the bull is a mixture of humanity and authority, an authoritarian system. Man, unlike the rest of creation, has a certain degree of free will, but, says Blackstone, or not just, they're putting a name on it, but not Blackstone, thus says English, Anglican, Anglo-Saxon culture, because the royal family is a Saxon, they're not English. They changed their name Windsor. Anyways, even this free will is governed and limited by God's law. Furthermore, man is not left to his own fumbling around in search of an elusive law. Rather, God has affirmatively revealed his law so that man may find it acceptable. And this is all, what are we saying? English common law. So, why won't you delete? Let me just do a comment. So, labeling an entire, this is my conversation with ChatGPT, labeling an entire legal system as criminal enterprise is a broad characterization. Legal systems, including common law, are complex entities with historical, cultural, and societal influences. While aspects of historical injustices and privileges might be embedded in legal structures, the ongoing evolution of legal framework allows for reforms and improvements. Efforts to address systematic issues, promote justice, and ensure equal protection under the laws are essential components of legal development. Public awareness, advocacy, and engagement in legal process contribute to shaping systems that align with principles of fairness, equality, and human rights. It's important to recognize both the shortcomings and potential for positive change in a legal system. Aren't those efforts obstructed by powerful forces that maintain the status quo? This is me, obviously. In some cases, powerful interests may influence and resist change to the status quo within legal system. Challenges to reform can arise from various factors, including entrenched interest, political dynamic, economic considerations, and societal attitudes. Overcoming these obstacles often requires sustained effort from advocates, policymakers, and the public to push for transparency, accountability, and justice. While obstacles may exist, history has shown that legal systems can evolve in response to the societal demands and changing norms. Public awareness, activism, and legal reforms contribute to shaping systems that better align with principles of fairness, equity, and equity is a key word right there, and protection of rights. It's an ongoing process that involves navigating challenges and working towards positive change. Did the apartheid government system of South Africa evolve or dissolve? The apartheid system of South Africa did not evolve but was dismantled through a process of political and social transformation. The dismantling of apartheid began in the late 20th century, marked by the series of negotiations, protests, and international pressure. Key milestones included the unbanning of the anti-apartheid organizations, the release of Nelson Mandela from prison, and negotiations that led to the end of apartheid and the establishment of a multiracial, which is ridiculous in its own right, democratic elections in 1994. The transition from apartheid to a democratic system involved extensive negotiations involving various political parties, including African National Congress, ANC, and the apartheid government. This period of change culminated in the first democratic elections in 1994 when Nelson Mandela became the first black president of South Africa. The transformation represents a dissolution of the apartheid system rather than its evolution, as is marked, and it marked a departure from the discriminatory policies and practices that define apartheid. So English common law can also be dealt with the same way for the same rational, historical, and societal motives. The transformation and reform. Okay, anyways. So, English common law is the labyrinth. The Bar Association is the Minotaur. It is a fusion of an authoritarian system, of an authoritarian psychology and a human brain. What do you call it? Like put onto a human brain. Because it can't operate without the human brain. So here we go. Obedience to authority, Stanley Milgram. It is this ideological abrogation to the authority that constitutes a principal cognitive basis of obedience. If, after all, the world or the situation is as the authority defines it, again, how did English common law say it? The law already exists. It's given there. They're there to provide it, and the English version just happens to be the most accurate version, closest to God's interpretation of what law is supposed to be for man. A certain set of actions follows logically. The relationship between authority and subject, therefore, cannot be viewed as one in which a coercive figure forces action from an unwilling subordinate. Because the subject accepts authority's definition of the situation, action follows willingly. So, the Bar Association is structured so that the people that enter it, they become the Minotaur. They devour us, civilian population, peasants, plebeians, whatever you want to call it, whatever the term is, common, middle class, subjects, whatever, working class, labor force. So they are the monster. And the story of the significance of the story of Socrates is that, oh, actually, I think it's just right here too. Shoot. Okay, Socrates. This is from, yes, The Trial and Death of Socrates. Socrates. So having a conversation with Euthyphron. Okay. What is this? And what is this suit of yours in Euthyphron? Are you suing or being sued? I am suing. Who is he? He is my father. Your father, my good sir. He is indeed. What are you prosecuting him for? What is the charge? It is a charge of murder, Socrates. Good heavens, Euthyphron. Surely the multitude of ignorant of what makes surely the multitude are ignorant of what makes right. Surely the multitude, that means all of you, are ignorant of what makes right. I take it that it is not everyone who could rightly do what you are doing. Just like what Stanley Milgram just said, opposing the authority figure. Only a man who is already well advanced in wisdom, whatever his name is. That is quite true, Socrates. Okay? So, the legal system, that's the Bar Association, which is British Anglicanized, British accredited registrar. That's why they're esquires. They're licensed. I think. I'm not gonna find it. So, anyways, they're registered. Here we go. Registrar. An officer who has the custody or keeping of a registry or register. The word is used in England. Register is more common in America. So the British Accreditation Registry is what a licensed bar associate is. And if you look at this word, actually, this is a combination of regis, which is regi or regis, which is king, and star, which is a variation of star. So it's the king's star, and that is directly tied to the knight, who is this thing sucks. Anyways, that is directly tied to the star is this. Oh, let me see here. Maybe I can find it here. Jesus Christ. Man, it won't even let me search. This is a horrible. Anyways, I'm not gonna be. It's not even loading. Come on, hurry up. So the star, the registrar, the king's star. This is all Anglicanized. This is upholding Anglican. Imperial Terrace, the Bar Association. I believe it's here. No. Ah, got it. Okay, so I think it's here. Yeah, night. Come on. Damn, this thing is motherfucking annoying. Wow. Any day now. Okay, so this is a fraternal order of police. Why is a star? This is tied in with the Bar Association. All right, well, I don't know if that's going to work while I'm doing this over here. Let me just go over here real quick. Heraldry. So this is from the 1887 book, The Order of Knights of Our Own Day, like those of the medieval chivalry, are fraternities of honor. Okay. In like manner, all honorable insignia of every kind may be displayed in association with a shield of achievement of arms, and in accordance with the same rule, foreign orders and insignia may be displayed provided they have been duly recognized and admitted by in this country. So they have to be licensed and registered in order to be valid. Alrighty, where is it? Here we go, it's this one. Okay. So, this is from that book, the 1887 book on was published on decree of the King George, whatever it was at the time. The insignia of knightly rank, common to heraldry of every civilized people. Okay. So a knight in Latin, eques, a mounted warrior who in the Middle Ages was a man of military rank entitled to bear a pennonem or shield of arms and further distinguished by his golden spurs when used alone, down rank, whatever. Orders of knighthood of our own day, like those of fraternities of honor. Knight in English law, the next personal dignity after the nobility, so not a hereditary. All right. So English common law is designed as a weapon to prevent America from becoming the America that Americans dream it to be. Shoot. Because darn. Okay, so here we go, just real quick. But common law inherently establishes, protects, and expands peerages, claims of title, ownership, and amnesty, correct? Common law does recognize and protect certain property rights, titles, and legal concepts. That's why it's important to have English common law in the American system, because if the American economy doesn't recognize any of the European peerages or monarchies' claims, then stuff like the Falkland Islands or the British, the Anglosphere, and as a whole, mining particular, they're what they have claim to mining rights, specifically in like Chile, it was probably the prime example in the Western Hemisphere, are become a point of contention, so that the American establishment, the American sphere, would be the most prominent opposition to the Anglosphere, because America would deny the claims of any Anglican-based peerage claim to property rights. And that would also go with the America as envisioned from a civilian standpoint would reject all of the papal, because the Pope is a monarchy in its own right, a European monarchy. That's all it is fundamentally. It's only markets itself as a religion for tax benefits that are given with under English common law because of this kind of thing right here. Common law systems such as the English common law have evolved over centuries and encompass a wide range of legal systems. Now that goes with the whole thing. God gave us this law and we've given it to you. In terms of property rights and titles, common law provides a framework for determining ownership, resolving disputes, and establishing legal principles through judicial decisions and precedents. So that whatever was already existing, we're going to keep running with that in order to maintain some coherency. while the protection of property rights is a fundamental aspect of common law, while the protection of property rights is a fundamental aspect of common law, while the protection of property rights is a fundamental aspect of common law, while the protection of property is the fundamental aspect of common law, it is not limited to peerage claims. It applies to individuals and entities across society. Similarly, but that we see that that's not true because of what they have created within the United States system of eminent domain. And that can be seen as much as with white people too, with the pipelines that went up the center of the United States that took white people's land just as much as it was taking Indian land. It's just that the white people, because were the first group conquered by this system, their generation after generation are so ingrained with obedience to authority that they just took their shit and then left. The Indians stood their ground and fought and fought and fought and are technically still fighting, but they're just not getting any news coverage, as we call it. Similarly, common law includes principles related to individual rights, legal responsibilities, and due process. But we see there's no such thing because since common law protects the authority first, because without the authority, there can be no protections, you understand? So you have stuff like the National Defense Authorization Act that was signed by Obama that says that any United States citizen, civilian citizen, can be detained indefinitely. And then you have the ruling from the Supreme Court that said any American citizen, based on the fact that you are a citizen, that's the most important thing, because you are a citizen protected by the authority of the United States federal government, you could be detained by any extension of the government for 72 hours without any charges, any investigation, or any justification. And that's been extended even longer with bar associate arguments and legal justifications and stuff like that. But you didn't see that with Jeffrey Epstein, who was let out of jail. He wasn't even in prison. It's important to recognize that common law systems are complex, dynamic. Okay, this is a quote from you in previous conversations we carried out. Common law, shaped by precedents and judicial decisions, traditionally protects peerages through historical recognition of hereditary titles and privileges. In contrast, civil law, that would be what we think of as what we think is supposed to be in America, is civil law. That doesn't necessarily mean we have to have civil law. We could have a whole new form of law. But civil law, in the language that we have available to us, is the countermeasure to common law, relying on codified statutes and accommodate peerages, but usually lack the same common law traditions, relying more on specific legal provisions for recognition and protection of aristocratic titles. Okay, so with that, the story of the Minotaur is about the establishment of a legal system in which you create you institutionalize apartheid so intrinsically into the system that anybody that enters into it, even the smartest man ever to live and the founding father of Western civilization, enters into it, they will die and they will fail. And the system, the Minotaur, will thrive.